In the autumn of 1346, on the desolate shores of the Crimean peninsula, a dying army surrounded an impenetrable fortress of stone. For over a year, the Mongol Golden Horde under Khan Janibeg had laid siege to Kaffa, the wealthiest European trading outpost on the Black Sea. Defended by towering double walls and sustained by Italian supply ships, the Genoese merchants inside believed they were completely safe. Then, a nightmare swept through the Mongol camp. A terrifying, unknown fever from the Eurasian steppes began rotting soldiers from the inside out, causing black, oozing swellings the size of apples in their armpits and groins. Thousands died in agony within days. Facing total military collapse, the Mongol Khan made a decision that would alter human history forever. He ordered his engineers to load the dead, plague-infected corpses into the giant wooden buckets of their counterweight trebuchets and hurled them over the stone battlements. It was the first recorded act of biological warfare in human history. Within weeks, the contagion poisoned the city. Panicked Italian merchants fled aboard 12 merchant galleys, sailing westward into the heart of the Mediterranean. They did not know that they were carrying the end of the medieval world in their hulls. This is the true story of the Siege of Kaffa and the terrifying siege that unleashed the Black Death upon humanity. To understand why Kaffa became the epicenter of a global catastrophe, you have to understand the immense wealth and arrogance of the Republic of Genoa. In the 14th century, the maritime empire of Genoa had transformed the Black Sea into its private commercial lake. At the very tip of the Crimean peninsula sat their crown jewel, the fortified trading metropolis of Kaffa. Established in the 13th century through a treaty with the Mongol Golden Horde, Kaffa was the ultimate western terminus of the Silk Road. It was a dazzling, cosmopolitan hub where the wealth of Asia met the markets of Europe. Through its guarded harbor gates flowed mountain loads of Chinese silk, Indian spices, Russian furs, Black Sea grain, and a lucrative, brutal trade in thousands of enslaved humans. Inside the city walls, Genoese merchant princes lived in opulent marble palazzos, protected by their supreme naval dominance, and Kaffa was engineered to be an impenetrable sanctuary. Surrounding the city were two concentric rings of colossal stone walls, reinforced with deep dry moats and over 30 massive square watchtowers. The outer perimeter was so vast that it could shelter 40,000 citizens during a siege. More importantly, Kaffa had an open lifeline to the sea. Because the Mongol nomadic horsemen had zero naval capability, Genoese merchant galleys sailed freely into the harbor day and night, unloading fresh water, grain, crossbow bolts, and mercenary reinforcements directly from Italy and Constantinople. To besiege Kaffa was to fight an enemy that could never run out of food, never run out of steel, and never be starved into submission. Yet, beneath the trading treaties, ethnic tensions were boiling over. In 1343, violence erupted in the nearby market town of Tana when an Italian merchant murdered a wealthy Muslim Mongol nobleman during a street brawl. Enraged by the insult, the ruler of the Golden Horde, Khan Janibeg, demanded immediate blood retribution. When Italian merchants refused to surrender the killer and retreated behind the fortified walls of Kaffa, Janibeg mobilized his vast steppe army to wipe the Italian colony from the earth. In late 1345, Khan Janibeg surrounded Kaffa with tens of thousands of Mongol, Cuman, and Tatar warriors. For nearly 2 years, the siege raged in a bitter stalemate. The Mongols erected wooden catapults, lobbing thousands of boulders against the sea walls. But the Italian defenders, shielded behind their stone battlements, mocked the nomadic riders from above, picking off Mongol commanders with heavy steel crossbows. The Genoese believed their stone walls made them invincible. They believed time was on their side. They did not know that traveling along the very Silk Road caravans they had grown rich from, an invisible killer was racing across the Asian steppes. And when it arrived in the Mongol trenches, war would be rewritten in blood and black rot. In the summer of 1346, the Siege of Kaffa took a horrifying, unearthly turn. Outside the city walls, the Mongol army was collapsing, but it was not Italian steel that broke them. From deep within the Central Asian steppes, traveling along the Silk Road caravan routes, on the backs of marmots, black rats, and fleas, an invisible demon had arrived in the Mongol trenches. Today, modern microbiology identifies it as the bacterium Yersinia pestis. To the medieval mind, it was the wrath of God. The symptoms struck with terrifying speed. A soldier would wake with violent chills and a burning fever. Within 24 hours, agonizing, hard swellings called buboes grew in his armpits, neck, and groin, expanding to the size of apples, turning purple and necrotic black as the flesh rotted alive from internal hemorrhaging. Victims coughed up black blood, their breath so foul that attending comrades fled in terror. Within 4 days, death was almost certain. In the Mongol camp, thousands of warriors perished every single week. Horses wandered aimlessly among unburied corpses. The air was thick with the stench of decaying flesh. The siege had failed. The Mongol army was effectively destroyed by nature. Yet, as Khan Janibeg stood among his dying army, his rage burned hotter than his fever. He knew he had to retreat, but he refused to let the wealthy Italian merchant princes celebrate victory. If his army was doomed, Kaffa would share its grave. Janibeg summoned his remaining siege engineers and issued a command that would haunt the historical record for centuries. He ordered his troops to collect the rotting, plague-ridden corpses of their dead comrades. Working through the night, soldiers hauled the blackened, oozing bodies to the front lines and strapped them into the giant wooden slings of their counterweight trebuchets. With a groaning creak of heavy timbers and the snap of release ropes, mountains of dead flesh were hurled hundreds of feet into the air, flying high over the colossal stone battlements. It was the first recorded act of biological warfare in human history. Inside Kaffa, the Italian defenders watched in paralyzed horror as bloated, disease-ridden corpses rained down from the sky, smashing onto marble piazzas, fracturing terracotta roofs, and landing in residential courtyards. As the 14th-century Italian notary Gabriele de Mussi later recorded, the Tatars ordered corpses to be placed in catapults and lobbed into the city, in the hope that the intolerable stench would kill everyone inside. Mountains of dead were thrown into the city, and the Christians could neither hide nor escape. The Genoese desperately scrambled to contain the horror. Working with cloth tied over their faces, they hauled the rotting bodies to the sea cliffs, dumping them by the thousands into the deep waters of the Black Sea. It was completely useless. The citizens of Kaffa believed the disease spread through the foul stench of the air, a medieval concept known as miasma. They did not know that millions of microscopic bacteria and ravenous rodent fleas had already transferred onto the city's rats, blankets, and water cisterns. Within days, the fever erupted inside the stone walls. Priests, merchants, women, and children developed the same agonizing black swellings. The impenetrable Fortress of Kaffa had become a quarantined tomb. Desperate to escape the living nightmare, a small group of surviving Italian merchants made a midnight dash for the harbor. They boarded 12 merchant galleys, severed their mooring ropes, and raised their sails toward Italy. They believed they were sailing toward salvation. They did not know that they were carrying the end of European civilization in the bellies of their ships. In the autumn of 1346, 12 Genoese galleys drifted out of the harbor of Kaffa into the dark waters of the Black Sea. To the terrified merchants on board, the open ocean felt like an escape. In reality, their wooden hulls were floating incubators of death. Deep below deck, nestled among bales of oriental silk and sacks of grain, millions of infected black rats and rodent fleas thrived in the warm, damp cargo holds. By the time the fleet reached Constantinople, the sickness was already consuming the crews. As the ships made port to take on fresh water, the contagion spilled ashore, ravaging the Byzantine capital and killing the teenage son of Emperor John VI. Driven by panic, the surviving ships pushed westward through the Aegean and across the Mediterranean. In October 1347, the Ghost Fleet arrived at the bustling port of Messina on the island of Sicily. When the Sicilian port authorities boarded the galleys, they stepped into a scene of unspeakable horror. Most of the sailors were already dead at their oars, their decomposing bodies covered in putrid black swellings. The few crew members still breathing were delirious with agony, coughing dark blood onto the timber decks. As the contemporary Franciscan chronicler, Michael of Piazza, later recorded, the Genoese carried in their bones a sickness so violent that whoever spoke with them was seized by death and in no way could escape. The infection spread to everyone who had contact with them or even bought anything from their ships. Terrified, the citizens of Messina drove the infected galleys out of the harbor at sword point, using burning arrows to force them back out to sea. It was a futile gesture. During the few hours the ships were docked, infected black rats had already scampered down the hemp mooring ropes and vanished into the city's grain warehouses. Within days, Messina was transformed into an open-air tomb. The expelled ghost ships drifted on toward mainland Europe, docking at Genoa, Venice, and the French port of Marseille. From these coastal entry points, the Black Death radiated inward like an unstoppable wildfire. Traveling along ancient Roman trade roads, the plague devoured the continent with mathematical precision. In Florence, 4 out of every 5 citizens perished within months, turning the city of Dante into a ghost town. In Paris, over 800 people died every single day. By the summer of 1348, the contagion crossed the English Channel, striking London with apocalyptic fury. Every pillar of medieval civilization collapsed under the weight of the contagion. Doctors, armed only with fragrant herbs and bloodletting lancets, were powerless. Priests, terrified of infection, refused to administer last rites to the dying. Families fractured as terrified parents abandoned their own afflicted children. Cemeteries overflowed within weeks, forcing cities to dig massive communal trenches where corpses were stacked like cords of firewood, covered with thin layers of lime. In less than 5 years, the biological horror launched from the trebuchets of a remote Crimean fortress had swept from the Black Sea to the frozen fjords of Norway, and the world it left behind was unrecognizable. When the initial fury of the Black Death finally subsided in 1353, Europe had become a graveyard of 50 million souls. Between 1/3 and 1/2 of the continent's entire population had been erased in less than a decade. Whole villages were swallowed by forest. Fields lay unharvested, and the feudal hierarchy that had dominated the Middle Ages for nearly 1,000 years was shattered beyond repair. Because labor had become so scarce, the surviving peasants suddenly held the power to demand higher wages and personal freedom. Landowners were forced to negotiate. In a single generation, the ancient chains of serfdom broke, igniting the economic transformation that would eventually birth the modern middle class. At the same time, the failure of traditional medicine and religious prayers to halt the contagion fractured humanity's blind faith in authority, forcing scholars to embrace empirical observation and laying the groundwork for the Renaissance and the scientific revolution. Looking back at the desolate shores of Crimea in 1346, history leaves us with an unsettling, permanent warning. The greatest catastrophes in human history rarely begin with grand global wars. They often start with a single, desperate commander making a reckless choice on the periphery of the known world. When Khan Janibeg ordered infected corpses to be loaded into his trebuchets, he believed he was merely punishing a single rival city. He did not understand that in an interconnected world, nature cannot be weaponized without consuming the conqueror along with the conquered. Today, as we navigate our own fragile, global networks and emerging biological technologies, we must ask ourselves, what invisible forces are we tampering with right now that future generations will remember as the sparks of another dark age? If you enjoyed this deep dive into forbidden military history, make sure to like the video and subscribe to How Come for more cinematic documentary investigations. Until next time, stay curious.